What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 94 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today's show is sponsored by Jobber. Go check out boostbyjobber.com and apply for their grants today. Let me know if you did apply for their grants. I'd love it if somebody from our community took home one of those, and I'd love to follow up with you. And today we're joined by Caleb and Brittany Auman. You would know them as the couple behind Auman Landscape and the Hardscape Academy. And we sit down and just talk about running your business together as a couple. What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What are the great things about it? We talk about it all today, as well as they're together in the trades event going on in Waco, Texas later in the summer. So be tuned to at the end of the episode when they talk about that. And let's get into it. Today, we're joined by Caleb and Brittany Auman, the couple behind Auman Landscape and the Hardscape Academy. We've had Caleb on the show a couple times before, so it's great to have Brittany here as well, joining us, talking about working as couples in a business. Caleb and Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, thanks. We appreciate it. It's cool to be here, dude.
Well, I figure we get started with a little bit of context about the two of yourselves. How you met, how you kind of came into this world of owning a business, working with each other in a business. Can we get started with a quick version, I guess, of your backstory and how the two of you came to be?
An abridged version.
Yeah, an abridged version of a complicated story. That's difficult. I'll let you tell that narrative the way you see fit. No, please do. Go
ahead.
So, long story short, Britt and I started dating back in 2008. Yeah, I was going to say 2008, and there's a whole long backstory to that. But for brevity's sake, we'll start it there. Her and I just did one of those typical things. Like we just started. We've known each other forever, and so we started talking. She had a relationship fall apart. I had a relationship fall apart, and we started talking as friends and all that. And then just like 12 years later, we have 3 kids, a company, and like a hectic, crazy lifestyle. So it's just one of those things neither one of us ever saw coming, like to culminate to this point, which is kind of crazy. So, it kind of just started out there, I would say, like initially.
We've been friends for 20 years now.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. So,
and he always had his company the whole time. So like I always knew of Auman Landscape, but 2009, I officially joined the company and kind of took ownership.
Yeah, so I crashed my first company about 10 years in, crashed my first company, and it was on its final like breaths of life as her and I started talking more, and I took her to a fancy dinner one night at a like Steak and Shake or some hamburger joint, whatever, and told her like I was going bankrupt, I had no money, life was like about as dismal as it could be. Our relationship was starting to get pretty serious. And I just wanted her to know, like, hey, this is where I'm at in life. It is not a great place. If you like get up and leave, I'll get the bill. Maybe I might have to run out too. I don't have any money. But like, I wanted to know where we were at or where I was at the time. And for some reason, she stuck that out, and here she is still.
And I stuck it out because you were my best friend. You can't bail on that.
Oh, geez,
But I graduated from college with a marketing degree in 2009. So. I was graduating. He was bankrupting himself.
I was graduating from the School of Hard Knocks. Yeah.
And our accountant, his accountant, we went in to do all the official paperwork and stuff. And he was like, "Are you okay with her taking over the company?" Now, that is not a good idea for anyone to do. Like,
yeah, I'd never advocate that.
Not married, giving the company to someone. We had been friends for a long time. So I'm going to say that made it okay. But it still is not a good idea. I do not suggest that for anyone.
Well, the joke at the time was, though, like people would say, like, well, what happens if you break up? Who gets the company? And the joke was at the time, well, if we break up, who has to take the darn thing? Like it was in such a bad shape because I closed my old company and she started a new one. And through the advice and counsel of our attorney and accountant, everything was above board. Everything was legit to do that way. But yeah, the joke was we had no money and really no assets to speak of. So it really was like, yeah, you can have it. No, I know you have it, if we ever split. But
But even though I own the company, he still kind of did everything. I still went and got another job. I worked for an insurance company in Columbus, and I was hating work. So then I did the next thing. I applied for another big girl job, and I got a job with the state of Ohio doing like unemployment and food stamps and that kind of like benefits for people. And I was even more miserable there than I was at the insurance company. And Caleb's like,
"Can't be miserable at my company."
And Caleb's like, "Why don't you just quit?" And we have a tanking company. He has a tanking company.
Well, no, the company tanked. The new one is kind of limping along. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess. So ever since then, I've been with the company and full time, and it's been a crazy ride. We put in a lot of field time ourselves. I mean, we were doing the 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night routine.
Benefit of no kids at the time, yeah.
No kids, low bills, everything. Eating spaghetti for dinner every night.
For years.
But all of that taught us, I think it made our relationship stronger because we went through all of those rides together.
I was used to being broke. She wasn't used to being broke. So it was a good...
They say some of the like biggest things that couples go through is like a bankruptcy, the loss of a child, the loss of a parent, building a house. There's like some monumental things that are really trying on relationships. And I don't know how we made it through, but I think we're closer because of all of that.
I mean, we enjoyed we knew we were building something that was going to end up somewhere, and that was the goal. And that was always the goal, right? We were trying to figure it out, and then we started reading Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace book, Total Money Makeover, whatever it was, and we figured out like, hey, all this stupid little debt I had on stuff was dumb, and I'm not against debt on machinery and trucks and stuff that makes money. I have nothing against that. We've got notes on some stuff at the company, so whatever. But but we needed to clean up a lot of things because it was hurting our cash flow, and it was just a bunch of baggage, right? And so we cleaned that up, worked like crazy. She worked at her grandma's ice cream shop on the weekends. I was scrapping metal, doing all this crazy stuff to get ahead, trying to sell work at the same time and sell landscaping projects. And we're still doing lawn care at the time. So then we eventually phased out of lawn care, which I don't miss a bit. So just a slow climb over 10 years to get, an overnight success 20 years later for me, maybe 10 years for her. And that's kind of where we started out initially for that part of the story. So again, that's the abridged version, man. Condensed version. So
and he's like, I've got to go now.
He's like, all right.
That was great. I want to kind of go back in time with the two of you here and go back into that mindset when you're sitting down at that table. Caleb, you're pouring your heart out, saying like this is where you're at financially, and Brittany, what makes you kind of take that leap of faith and continue on knowing what you know? Is you mentioned friendship? Is it that root in that foundation in friendship that made you kind of continue on and decide that you were going to, not saying continue on with the relationship, but continue on and take ownership of the company. And you guys are going to continue down that path of working with each other that way.
Well, at Steak and Shake, I didn't know it would end in me owning the company.
Okay, gotcha.
But like I said, he had been my best friend. I've known him for almost 10 years, 6 years prior to that. And he was, and he still is, the best person that I know. Caleb is the most genuine person I know. He would help people way before I would ever help them. And I knew he would make what was wrong right. There was like no doubt in my mind that this was a short term. This was a bump in the road. This was not going to be a 10-year thing. This was going to get fixed. He had faced reality. I could see how he felt about it. I mean, when someone tells someone that, it's not light. It's a heavy conversation. And for some reason, maybe I was just young and dumb. I wasn't scared. I was just ready to go.
So then what coming into saying, hey, this is the route we need to take. You're going to take ownership of that company. What is that kind of like? Can you kind of take us back into time into that and to decide that, that's the route you're going to take? And what's your mindset around then? Because, that's a huge step in terms of, like you said, not being married at the time, right? And can you kind of take us back into your mindset around then for the both of you in terms of taking that leap together, not being married, and what that was like?
To clarify, we did not get married until 2 years after he filed bankruptcy. So I owned the company for 2 years without, any real connection here. But I don't know, what were your thoughts?
I never wanted to not have a landscape business, a landscape company. I've always wanted to have my own company. I always will. It's in my blood. It's in my brain. It's whatever it is. Aside from like a ranch on 10,000 acres somewhere, like that's the only other thing. The company's more attainable. So, I mean, I know going forward, just like I just have always had a goal or a vision is to make the company viable. And it took me way longer than it should any normal person. And it's, probably indicative of my IQ. But the big thing was like, when I was a younger kid contractor, I remember guys my age in the mid-20s, they'd be like, oh, hey, I'm getting married. Or, I'd run into guys I knew that had businesses and it'd be like, I'd run into them and say, hey, what's up, man? How's the company? All that. Oh, I got out of that. I got a job. I had to get a real job. I got a kid on the way, or I'm getting married, all that. And it never sat well with me. I always had this goal of, well, this is a real job. Like, but so many dudes I knew did that. And I'm like, no, in my head, I'm like, no way. I'm going to make a legitimate, sustainable, viable, profitable, living, like workable business that I can be proud of and all that. And like, it took me 15 freaking years, which is way longer than it should have. But, that was just always my drive and my goal. So starting a new company, I didn't care how I got there. And if it was with her starting a new company to get there, and we were serious enough. I kind of knew the route we were going down, or just, I don't know. I guess I was half crazy too.
Yeah.
That might've been it. Yeah,
we never really talked about it.
That was kind of a weird.
We were at the accountant's office, and we both knew like we were he was filing bankruptcy, and there was all this paperwork. And the accountant, he's like, okay, now if you're okay with this, we're gonna put this in her name. We're gonna start a new LLC in her name. And he didn't have any assets at the time. I think we had a mower
and a trailer.
He's like, and we're going to, I don't know what we did with that. Maybe sold it for like $1 or something crazy like that. And he's like, and everything's going to be hers, and we're going to clean up yours. And
we never felt
I signed paperwork and started a new company.
But we never felt like that was an irreversible chain binding us together with the company either. So I don't think that's like had any bit of like why we stayed together. I don't think actually I know that didn't have anything to do with it, but it was our bond at the same time. Like,
I definitely would have given you the company if it worked out.
Oh, I would have insisted you take it, honey. But but so like, which is funny, it wasn't it was a bond together, but not bondage. You know what I mean? Like it was a weird thing. It was just what we clicked on is trying to mold this clay into something, right? And eventually we figured out what the goal was, what that looked like. And I remember one of the stories, and I feel like I tell this a lot anymore. So if you've heard this already or heard it other places, I apologize, folks. But like, one of the times was like, we just cleared payroll. We literally had like $20 to our names. I mean, like, period. Clearing payroll, didn't pay ourselves probably. And we had $20.
We were so broke at the time, I don't think we noticed. Or I at least didn't notice.
Yeah, we're so broke, we just didn't even think anything of it. But it was just like, I'm driving this old truck I've got up this big hill, and it's just lumbering up this hill, And beside me is this smoking hot chick and, a tank top riding up the hill with me, this piece of junk truck with $20 to my name. And I'm like, I'm never going back to this. Like, I'm only going up from here. We're only going, forward and positive and stuff from here. And I I don't know where what that moment was in the timeline of everything we discussed, but I just remember that feeling in that moment of like, I'm never going back to that. And I still, like, when I go to gas stations now, like, I'll see somebody that put, $4.79 in their tank, or like, you come up to the pump and it was like, $8.49 or $8.50 or $9 or whatever. You just see these random small numbers. I'm like, yeah, I remember those days. Like, I remember those days and I'm not going back. Like, so I empathize with the folks that are there, now. Maybe if you're listening and you're there, like, be smart, be diligent, read some financial books. There's a way out of it. You can do it. It takes time. It takes 2 or 3 years to get out of that mess, but it's the Matthew principle of, like, to those that have everything, more will be given, and to those that have nothing, everything will be taken. You've got to get that snowball rolling in a positive direction to where that Matthew principle works in your favor, to where, those that have everything, more will be given. So you've got to get that thing rolling into positive for you. And it just takes a long time. AC/DC says it best. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, man. And it's a long way to the top.
So I guess what I'm getting at is the next step.
Just don't answer my question.
He's like, I'm really glad you like talking.
Yeah, really. Oh God. Yeah, sorry, Mike.
The next step after the papers are signed, Brittany owns the company. Brittany, you mentioned that you went to get a job, hated it, got another job, hated it, and then finally you come together and you work together on Auman Landscape. Were there any reservations on either of your sides as to that move? Or was it like you knew this is the move we need to make, that's it, like full steam ahead?
I can definitely understand where most people would have reservations working with their spouse. I totally see that. At the time, I didn't. Like, we were literally best friends. We went everywhere together. And when I wasn't working my other job, I went around on an estimate, and I had weird hours at the other job. So I would already help out. I'd help out on the weekend. So I knew what I was getting into when I joined the company. The best part about it is I was able to give my full attention to the company at that point. And I was, as small and as girl as I am, I was an extra laborer, an extra set of hands on the job site. And I could help Caleb do design work in the evenings or whatever. So I had no hesitation doing it, other than the fact that we had no money, and now we definitely didn't have any extra money coming in. And so that was like a huge thing. And I know a lot of people that talk to us, they're like, well, we'll lose that extra income if my wife comes to work with us. And that is a serious discussion. And I suggest having at least 6 months savings, to cover your expenses before you do that. At the time we did not. So
our overhead was a lot different then too than it is now. But yeah, that's definitely like a thing too. Just to touch on that is like making sure you're in a financial position, if you're going to do that, to like for someone to quit a full-time paying job, to come on board. But also, like, your company you need to be charging the right prices to pay for that additional administrative staff. Like, whether or not if you're doing it yourself, you need to be compensated that, for the extra time you're doing it. Or if you're going to hire it out, the company's got to be bringing that income in anyhow. So like, it's not like if somebody quits a paying job to come work in a spouse's company or a partner's company or whatever, like, it doesn't mean you just stop taking a paycheck. That company needs to be you need to get that company to where that person is receiving a salary, because that is just the deal. It has to be that way. So, I think Andy Mulder and Jeremy Swire would say it best. We're not here for practice or exercise. We're here to make a living and fortunately enjoy what we're doing as we're making a living. So I don't know, Mike, maybe I didn't answer any of your questions still, but as far as reservation goes, no, I didn't. Like I said, my goal was to build a viable, sustainable company. And I knew for the most part, I can't work for anybody else. I'm just too something. And
wait, so you didn't enjoy working with me? You were just trying to get to the end goal?
Well, no, I mean, you were the partner that I probably knew deep down that I needed to help get things where they needed to be. And I had no reservation of working with you or anything like that. That was totally like exciting and awesome. I get to work with my smoking hot girlfriend. Like, that's cool. Like, and she likes to work. She can run machines. Like, that's a pretty good gig, right? Like, that's pretty cool. So, and we didn't kill each other. We haven't killed each other yet, So, and for clarity's sake, we still have days that are not good. we still have days and we had days then where like she'd be trying to change something in the company. There's a green form in the background right there. Actually, that's funny. Like this green form, to change the color of this form from white to green was like, Britt tried it. She's like, well, if we do the color coded forms, like then the guy, it'll be like the landscape crew reports will be green and the lawn care will be yellow. And I'm just like, oh no, we can't. I've always done it this way. The
like,
stupid phrase in English language.
The guys will never figure that out. It's like,
no,
they are way smarter than
no,
us.
I didn't. No, I don't think I said it that way exactly. What did I say? I don't think I said it. They couldn't figure it out. Anybody could figure out the color coding, but it was just like, I was just being such a hard-headed old knucklehead, and.
But I think once I started working with him, I had buy-in at that point. Before, it was just my name on a piece of paper. But once I was actually working in the company, I was motivated to I spent, I don't know how many hours making like new little postcards to send out for new lawn clients and just doing all this little advertising stuff that I used my college degree for. And so that buy-in, that motivated me because I saw the clients coming in from the work that I was doing. So.
I want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Jobber, and I'm excited to share Boost by Jobber, Jobber's new $100,000 grant program, which is built to help launch, grow, and strengthen small home service businesses. Wherever you are in your business journey, you are invited to apply for grants ranging from $1,000 to $20,000, and in August 2021, Jobber will be announcing 20 recipients. They'll be following along with your story, how the funding has impacted your business, and whether you're seeking new equipment, marketing dollars, launching a new service, you are invited to apply. The application only has 2 questions and an optional video, and I urge you to do that optional video. And you can go to boostbyjobber.com to learn more about this application. And if you're listening to this after May 5th, I still encourage you to go check out Jobber software. Jobber builds award-winning job tracking and customer management software for home service businesses. Now back to our episode. So was that time period where, Brittany, you were you were working another job, and then when you had spare time, you were working in Auman Landscape. Was that time together, and yourself too, Caleb, kind of like preparing yourself for that moment when you stepped in full time, all ahead with Auman Landscape, like you were full time committed? Was that time really key in deciding that, you know what, I can do this full time? This is something that I can do together with my husband, that time working with him, and Caleb, yourself working with your, I guess, girlfriend at that time as well. Was that big for you for, getting to that point where you say, hey, let's do this together full time, stop with what you're doing there and you're in Auman Landscape full time? Was that key?
I would say a trial run is definitely a good idea. I mean, say we had never worked together. We just lived together, and you go from spending 4 hours a night together to all day long.
Yeah.
So a few trial runs, maybe working some Saturdays to try to figure out, and how a person functions at home. Maybe they like watching TV, maybe they make fancy meals, but you don't know what they do at work. And, are they super motivated and super focused when they're at work? Or are they only motivated for the first 3 hours of the day and then they like kind of slack in the afternoons? Because in this industry, you can't do that. You have to just keep going all day long. It doesn't get any cooler as the day goes on. And so in my opinion, I think kind of a trial run is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue that. And I tell you, a lot of it just comes down to like, and I would bet you most of the time it's going to be the dude being hard-headed to like a new input. Like say a spouse comes into her girlfriend or whatever, or boyfriend, whatever, comes in to, to work with the owner or somebody that's always been doing that. I'm going to be willing to bet like the dude is going to be the hanging point mostly because they're not generally not going to be as receptive to new ideas or new ways of doing things and stuff. Or maybe I'm an exception there, but so the dudes out there, like be more open-minded and more willing to change. I'm more adaptive now to the things, and I still get stuck in my old ways on some stuff, but like I really try to be, and part of it is just maturing and just becoming smarter and realize like you should listen to other ideas, period, no matter who they are, because chances are they might know something you don't, or they may have a better idea than you, and there might be a better way than the way you always done it. And so if you're going to try working together, I don't think it's a bad idea. Like Britt said, do some kind of trial run, or start working Saturdays maybe, and then just talk it out. The biggest thing with spousal conditions is like communication, just talking to each other and talking through all the issues or all whatever, and trying to not assume anything or assume the other person knows how you're feeling or what their
I think
emotions are, that kind of stuff. Communication is always the thing we always come back to, of like, you've got to communicate what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what your intentions are, because just the male female brain just sees things totally different and hears things totally different. So
I think communicating the expectations, whether your spouse is coming in to do invoicing and accounts payable and receivable and all that stuff, just communicate their job. That way they're not missing anything. Maybe there's a big piece of the puzzle that they're missing that they didn't do at their old job, or they're doing marketing. Maybe it's a mom who misses working and just wants some extra stuff to do to take their mind off of the mom thing. And just like, okay, well, here's your budget. These are the people that we're looking for. Just be really clear in what you're trying to achieve. And that way they can do their job efficiently.
So speaking about communication, when there is a decision that's being made about something that you two disagree on, how do you go about communicating through that and coming to a conclusion about what that decision is going to be for the betterment of the business, as opposed to, one or the other, what you see? How is that communication done, and how is the conclusion come about? Like, for example, that green piece of paper, how does that get to the bottom of things?
That was a suggestion, and then it was turned down. Then it was another suggestion. I think ultimately it comes down to how you communicate it. I know Caleb's he's kind of in charge of large purchases. I push the brake on large purchases just because I don't want to spend the money, even though I know deep down inside it's probably the right, like if Caleb says it's the right thing, it's probably something we need. I just, like he said earlier, we're never going back to the bankruptcy situation. So I'm just always very hesitant, well, we actually have some money now. I don't want to let go of it. So a lot of just trust that, he's going to make the right decision with it. And he'll always sit down and like, we're going to use it on these types of jobs, and we can sell this much more work doing this, or this will speed up our guys. This will save a day on excavation if we just get this excavator. So just really communicating the who, what, where, when, and why of the machine is big for that, as far as like purchases like that. Anything that like directly relates to my job, he's very open to making my job easier. So if I need to upgrade the computer, or if there's a software program that I think that we should try, he's generally pretty open to anything that I suggest. But like I said, there's tons of talking. Like, we talk about it. If it doesn't go smooth the first time, we talk about it again until eventually we come to an answer. It might take 2 or 3 weeks to come to that answer. And, I know Missy Sherber, she owns, her and her husband own T. Sherber Excavating out in Minnesota. They give themselves 10 minutes to argue. If something's not clicking with them, they can hash it. They can fight for 10 minutes, but then it's done. And they have to move on to something else, because really you're not going to accomplish anything past 10 minutes. If you haven't come to a conclusion at that point, you need to revisit it later. I think one of the issues, or not issues, but a long time ago, I wanted to do Element software, and I was pregnant at the time, but we went to some seminar on it that Unilock, I think, put out. And I was like, I think this can solve a lot of our problems. Like, this can speed up your estimating. We'll get quotes out on time. And Kay was like, no, he's like, we don't have time to set that up. And
the reason
we were having a baby.
Yeah, we were 2 months away from having a baby, and I knew by sitting through the seminar how much front end work that program needed to make it viable, make it really worth the investment of spending a couple $100 a month. And my argument was, we don't have time right now. Let's explore this next winter when we have time in the wintertime to invest in it and set it up. ended up, I mean, we committed to it the year after. It ended up being a great program, all that stuff, but it takes a ton of front end time and all that. So that was my hesitation to it at that point. It wasn't no, it was just like, we're going to spend $200 a month for probably a program we're not going to utilize yet. And then going into busy season, like, so that was my hesitation to it then.
But I think like running a company together, you have, as great as it is, you have to accept that those challenges are going to come along the way. And no matter how great your relationship is, if you have a healthy marriage, there's going to be things that you disagree on, because you should, and your company will grow more because you guys are thinking differently about different tasks. And it's just being able to hear what the other person says and come to an agreement, merge those two thoughts together and you'll make it.
So bigger picture, when you're sitting down and talking about the vision of Auman Landscape, and I know, you're doing much more than just Auman Landscape, Hardscape Academy, everything that you got going on online. What does it look like when you're sitting down for those bigger vision meetings, let's say, or when you're talking about the bigger vision, the direction of the company, what you should be doing? Are there big disagreements on that, or are you two basically on the same page in terms of the next steps of business? And then what do those disagreements look like, and how do you conclude those disagreements? Because those are huge. Those are bigger picture, next step things, right? Those are big for your business.
Yeah, those are lifetime things.
Yeah, I'll tell you what our current issue is that we bicker on currently is Britt is still trying to take on too many things and do them herself. And the argument we have is, or I have with her, is we don't have any more time, but you keep putting more things on your plate. And I'm trying to get her to put the brakes on some things, or we just have to hire out some administrative stuff, or we have to hire out the additional things we're doing, be it additional content creation or additional training courses we want to put out, whatever. There's back end work of that she cannot do anymore, and something else not suffer for it. That's the thing. And so that's what we're trying to work through and talk through now, of like, what more can we take on, but not come at the expense of Auman Landscape, the primary revenue generating function of the entire family and our guys and their families. And that's a big discussion right now that we're having.
How does that apply to setting long-term goals for the company?
Because it has to do with the goals we have for the company, and it's growing the social media channels. It's growing, the Hardscape Academy. It's growing Auman Landscape. And so we can only do so much. And so the challenge is, like, she doesn't think she needs to hire out more stuff. I think we need to hire out a lot more. And so I think that was my tie into it, at least. So
starting out, what we did when we first started working together, I would write a business plan and he would write a business plan. I had like a sample one out there, and so we had kind of something to follow, I guess. And then we would read them out loud and merge them together. And so, we both felt like we had a piece of the business and we both had something to work for, and we set sales goals that way. We cut services, we added services. I thought I wanted to do Christmas lights one year. Caleb let me add that in there. We didn't do any Christmas lights. So, but now, now the company, all the goals that we set when we were kid contractor status, when we were rebuilding the company, we've met those goals now. So over the past year and a half or so, we've had I won't speak for you, but I've had a really hard time visioning where the company's going from here. I did a really bad job at amending our goals as we went. And so over the winter, we had some really good talks about, how big do you want the company to get? And, where is the social media thing going to go? And where should we concentrate our efforts? We want to build a shop. We really just had to go through those things. He's more particular on where the shop goes, the specific location and how close it is to the highway. And I just want a shop. So
she put it out in the desert if it was up to her. She didn't. We got to be at the freeway.
So, I hate to just keep saying it, but we just talk it out, and we try
to talk it out, yell it out sometimes. I mean,
we try to separate family time from business time. And, you know, from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock is dedicated family time. But we'll also,
I would say like 6:30 to 9 is, we really don't deal with any business stuff. That extra hour and a half is kind of washy sometimes. So,
but it's, you just, I don't know, if I have an idea though at dinner time, I'm like, you know what? We didn't call Melissa today. Crap. And so there, he's writing on his hand or
or I'm yelling
something.
out of the shower something I thought of that we should do, or do this or that. And so, you know, you know it, Mike, and everybody listening, your brain never turns off of the company. Like, it never turns off solely. We just try to, with the kids, you know, from like 6:30 to 9ish, try to mitigate being on the phone, handle an email, a phone call that comes in. We really try to shut that time down. And now, being, you know, a more tenured contractor, you know, that we're stable now. The workflow is good. Like, we have that privilege now, and I'd say we've earned it. And, you know, for the young guys out there starting out, where you're burning the oil, you know, 14 hours a day, and you're not at that status yet. It's going to take you 3 to 5 years to get past it, really, unless you really run a tight ship right out the gate. But those first 3 to 5, man, are tough, and everybody out there struggles through it. And you just got to, again, be diligent and be smart. And there's a whole nother conversation there, but hang in there, folks. It gets better. You just got to make sure you're keeping that snowball rolling the right way and growing.
One last thing on, you know, setting goals for your company. One thing we started doing this year is we started posting our goals on the refrigerator, and I wrote it on the bathroom mirror, and pretty much anywhere I can stick it that I would see it all day. And just those subtle reminders, like, and our refrigerator literally has a thing, it says build a shop, and then, you know, save for retirement.
Continue saving for retirement.
But then, you know, like, we want to buy extra property, like a retreat type property. And so those goals are on the bathroom mirror, they're on the refrigerator. Every time I open it to get a drink, I am reminded of what my goal is for the day. And our kids know that. We went over them with our kids, and that, I think, including the kids in those goals, even for the company, letting them know where the company is going, why we're working so hard, you know, why we're on this podcast tonight. All of that leads up to our end goal. So,
yeah, I used to think posting your goals visually was a cheesy, you know, corporate America slogan, poster on the wall thing. And then we started doing it, and you just see it every day. You're like, yeah, that's why I'm dealing with angry Grandma Crabtree, or angry developer this, or happy, you know, subcontractor that, you know, whatever. Like, it keeps it in mind. And the goal can be as simple as, like, put $1,000 in the bank for savings, or I want to buy a 200-acre hunting reserve, you know, or my own hunting land, you know, in Southern Ohio at some point. Like, the goals can be from, you know, all the, you know, short to long term, but seeing it really does help. For me, I really didn't realize how powerful that was, just constantly seeing, like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why we're doing this for the kids, that kind of stuff. Like, that's a big thing. It's all part of, like, a unified vision. Whether you run a company together or not, like, you still run a company. Even if your spouse works outside the company, like, you're still running a company together. You may or may not know it, but you've got to be talking to your spouse about the company, about cash flow, you know, cash flow deficiencies or cash flow abundances. Like, but you got to talk about those things, because you are running a company together, believe it or not. And the way I see it, you need to be, you know, hey, cash flow sucks this month. Like, I'm not going to cash a paycheck or two for a couple weeks till things straighten up. But then after that, we'll be good, or whatever. And just those kind of communications really alleviate a lot of stress if you're, you know, trying to get a company to a stable spot, you know.
Oh, that was great. And I ask all these questions because I am curious, and it's a situation that I find myself in, but I don't see myself working with my wife. Nothing against her. I love her, but I just don't see that. And I'm just trying to get that better picture from the two of you, and what that looks like. But then you bring up the next thing, and you brought it up. So I'm going to ask you, the kids, because bringing kids to the picture brings in a whole nother aspect of being married, not let alone working in the same business, and those boundaries that you need to set. Can I ask, where in the timeline do the kids fit in terms of where Auman Landscape is after bankruptcy, after transferring ownership, is the company stable at that point? Then you start talking about kids. The kids enter the picture. What can we get into that?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, we had some financial goals before we had Addison. And like Caleb said earlier, the first 3 years are the hardest. Either whether you're climbing out of bankruptcy or starting a new company, the first 3 years are really the make or break thing. We had Addison the 4th year after filing bankruptcy. So we hit that. We achieved what we needed to. And then we had Addison. And then 2 years later, we had Zeke. And then 2 years later, we had Levi. So kids bringing it into the mix was crazy. You didn't realize how much time you did have before you had kids. I don't know what's the.
I mean, the main thing before we had Addison, and which we had the fortunate situation of we could dictate, those kind of terms, right? But we had, like, we want to get a couple, and this is when we had zero money. Practically, like, before we have kids or even start talking about having kids or whatever, like, we want to at least have a couple $1,000. You know what I mean? And now to think about that, I don't want to say like it's a little bit of money, but like to think about that would make, I'm like, oh my God, it was crazy. Like bringing a child into the world, like, but and the folks out there that had a kid earlier than you're planning on or whatever, like, man, I'm with you. It's tough. I just want to be encouraging to the folks out there that are struggling, and they didn't have that fortunate situation that we, even for going broke and all that crap, like we still had, a few things going for us, I guess. And not that kids are going against you. It's just an added challenge that you can't overcome. And so like, we just had small financial goals that we wanted to hit before we had each kid. And, so hopefully they had as stable of an upbringing as we could possibly provide them at the level we were at. And, and even if you have kids and you're struggling and you're trying to start a company all at the same time, like it's all just about setting little attainable goals. I mean, that's just all you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Right. And so it's like, man, what Caleb said, it makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should try to get just $500 saved by the end of the month. And you set that goal. I'm going to hold off on beer with the boys this weekend, and I'm going to hold off on whatever it is, you're throwing some money away on. I'm just not going to do that this weekend so that I can, be doing this for my family. And those kind of sacrifices are what get you. That's that snowball, that Matthew principle snowball, right? The delayed gratification kind of concept. So, again, for you folks that are just starting or hanging in there, or just, whatever, like hang in there, just make the best decisions you can and all that. So but again, back to like, that's where we're at with having the kids. We try to be very structured and reasoned with that decision, which we were fortunate enough to have at that time. So.
And we include the kids when we can. I mean, I mulched with one of the babies in the stroller because we were shorthanded and we had a graduation party to get ready for. And so Zeke came to work with me that day. And
oh yeah, you kind of oversaw the project because the guys were there working, but you kind of went to the site to make sure things were going the way they needed to make sure we hit a deadline that we were running tight on and stuff like that. And so you're out there with little baby Zeke and making sure the guys are getting annuals and perennials and mulch and all that stuff in.
So, I mean, we don't want to not be involved in our kids' lives. Like I don't necessarily want to be a stay-at-home mom, but I don't want to be a full-time working mom either. So currently our office is in our house. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, I can eat lunch with my kids when I want to, and they can also barge in the middle.
If we forget to lock that door, man, it's fair game. But they're at grandma's tonight, so we're in good shape.
But like we talk to them all the time. If you want to go to Disney World this year, we have to work these hours. And obviously our hours aren't crazy during the winter because we don't do snow work or anything. So we do a lot of family time in the winter. But we try not to work Saturdays and Sundays at all. That's like family time, house project time. And I think the kids understand. I think
for as best as kids can. I actually don't think they realize I know they don't realize actually how fortunate they are that we are around so much, because a lot of working parents, the kids, they don't see their kids for 12 hours, right? And I know our kids don't get that. Later they will, and so that's fine. But that's one thing, the way we want to we're working hard to craft our lifestyle that way. And it's not easy always. And it's not easy, period. But the benefits to us are worth it. And at the same time, there's some families that would just kill each other if they were together as much as we are too, So it's just you just got to do what works, for you. There's the Auman model we're not saying it's the way to go, because some folks would go nuts living the way we live.
Going back to setting goals, this was important to us.
Right.
And we knew what we wanted our life to look like. And so that's what we've worked really hard to build. And it's not necessarily it's not always about, I want $1 million in the bank. What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? What do you want it to look like in 20 years? And work towards that lifestyle. Yeah,
something I cite all the time is some guys I know that built some really big, admirable, amazing companies, be it landscape or, whatever, manufacturing or whatever. And they built these awesome companies, but their kids are grown adults and they hate them and the company. So the kids' upbringing came at the expense of building this huge, awesome business. And so I saw that happen a lot when I was just starting to have kids with some guys I knew. And I'm like, okay, note taken, don't want to end up there. I don't want to be working 90 hours a week for 10 years. That's cool. We've got awesome everything, but my kids hate me or don't know me hardly, kind of deal. So there's that trade, right? And you got to just figure out that balance that makes sense. And you can still achieve that, but you just got to make sense. You can make sure those things make sense, and all that. Britt, you touched on this, and Mike, you may get to this. And since it's my show, I'm going to, run this the way I want to.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Podcast here. But Britt, you touched on it. And I think this is important because a lot of guys, we get a lot of questions all the time. Like, how do I get my wife or my spouse more involved? And your answer to this is very good. So I would like to make sure we touch on this. This is a big deal. Thanks again for joining us, Mike. I appreciate it.
You read my mind. It was my next question anyways.
Okay,
thank the Lord. Okay, cool. You probably ask it better than I would.
So you can't make your spouse do something they don't want to do or they're not good at. If you need an accountant, but your wife is a marketing person, that's probably not going to work. Don't make her do that. She will fail and you will not like her for it.
Or let her try if she wants to, but don't force a square peg into a round hole.
Don't ask her to do something she's not willing to do or she's not passionate about. If she's not passionate about it, she won't give it any effort. I know, I am not passionate. I hate digging with a shovel. I know, but I'm so bad at it. I don't know why. I am just awful. I can't edge beds. I don't know. My legs aren't strong enough. I don't know. Something's wrong with me. I'm not passionate about that. So I never take that job. That's a quick example that I can think of. But he's really bad at accounting. So I don't ask him to do
I don't know about that anymore. I used to be. I'm not bad at accounting.
We haven't given it a trial run.
Now, I don't want to be chief number cruncher, but I understand it now. And I understand so yeah, I don't want to do accounting all day. No, but I understand it. I get it. So I'm not passionate about accounting, but I know how to do it. I'm not bad at it. I don't want to do it.
But long story short, if your wife says that she wants to get involved with the business, then talk to her about it and see what she would want to do.
Yeah, don't be like, well, what I really need is somebody to do my taxes. Why don't you do the taxes?
But
no, what would they be best fit to do?
If she's not asking to be part of your business, maybe bring it up once, but otherwise I wouldn't push it because, still communicate what's going on in the company. I think that's important. But if she doesn't show interest in it, you can't make her. Yeah.
But again, you could kind of run that gateway of if they're on Facebook a lot and their job is marketing, be like, hey, could you run some Facebook ads for the company? That'd be awesome if you could do that. And you do that and we'll go to steakhouse this Saturday, every Saturday, or, you figure out whatever that carrot is, right? Or whatever that reimbursement is. And if you get that done for me every week, I swear to goodness, I will hang all the pictures. You make me a five list honeydew thing. I guarantee I'll get that done on Saturday, every Saturday. You work out that trade, right? That's a theory in my present. Now, Britt, she just tells me what to do around the house and I do it. We don't get that kind of reciprocation around here.
Well,
yes, ma'am.
I have one last question around that. So feel free to take as much time with this one as you want, but do these roles kind of just fall into place in terms of what is needed in the business with the two of you, both business and personal life? Do these roles kind of just fall into place then based on the needs of the business, based on what is necessary, or are these discussed amongst yourselves and decided? How are these roles kind of determined?
That's interesting.
I'd like to say a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think the rules kind of fall into place, but then they're discussed once they're there because they might not be a great fit or they might need adjusted. You know, the more kids we had, the more diligent we had to be with our time. And so, you know, we're like, we should really try to stop working at 5 o'clock. Like, you shut the office door. And so just little things like that. It wasn't something we were always thinking about, but it presented itself because we noticed one of us was in the office till 6 o'clock, or, you know, someone has to leave, quit work to go get the kids from the babysitter. And so I think it's a little bit of both.
But I think what the crux of the question is like, how did you fall into where you're doing a lot of the books and stuff like that, and I'm doing a lot of the estimating? So how did those roll? How did we kind of just? It's almost like you shook the jar of marbles, and somehow, you know, they ended up in the right places. Like, you know, but I guess I don't know. She doesn't
I just
mind
took
doing
over
a lot
what I thought I was good at.
Yeah. And stuff we're not good at or we don't like, and like that's a lot of that is accounting and some stuff that we just A, don't get to, or B, we're not passionate about it, so it's the last thing to get done. We have an outside bookkeeper now that's running numbers for us and doing profit and losses on projects and kind of running financials for us, because that's something that just wasn't happening, wasn't getting done because nobody was super excited to do it. But there's always just something more pressing, it seemed, in the moment, fires that needed put out, as opposed to running a P&L on a job. So we started hiring stuff like that out. So stuff that we're not passionate about doing, each person, that kind of, you know, but it still kind of just fell into where like I'm running a lot of sales and I'm running a lot of estimates, or, you know, working a lot of estimates, but Britt can still do that a lot. I barely know how to use QuickBooks anymore, or, you know, a lot of that, the taxes and all that crap that Britt does now, thank the Lord, that she does. But I'll tell you, knowing now what I do know, if she weren't involved, I would be hiring all those things out and I wouldn't be trying to do them all myself, because that is what led to my ultimate demise in the first company. I was trying to do everything myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't excited to do it. And so it was the last thing that got done. And the next thing I know, I'm in a mountain of tax debt and tax issues because it just always got put on the back burner because I didn't want to do it. I wasn't in love with it. And I didn't know how to do most of it. And so everybody kind of rattled into their own little columns, I guess, of what we do well, and then the stuff we really don't want to do, we hire out. And that's a 3-year thing. It takes time. The company, it takes time. Some starting out, you got to wear a lot of hats, but you still need to hire out your, you know, some accounting and some bookkeeping and things like that too. So, yeah.
Well, as we wrap this up, this was an episode about couples, so it just makes sense that we talk about the event that the two of you have going on in Waco, Texas. Can you talk to us about Together in the Trades? What's going on in Waco?
So on June 12th of 2021, we are doing Together in the Trades. It's a summit for couples in business. We are hosting it with Brian and Liz Fullerton out of Michigan. And we're just really, it's a conference to help couples not get divorced. If
you run a company together. Yeah, that's kind of our tongue-in-cheek tagline. Yeah, should hopefully help you keep from getting divorced if you run a company together. And
we're bringing in, we're having a marriage counselor come in who, you know, will talk about communication, how important it is throughout the workplace. But we want to talk to people about things like what to do with big financial decisions, how to incorporate your family into the business, how to leave your job for the family business, leaving a legacy, things like that we think are important to us and getting to where we are. And we don't know everything, which is why we're bringing in professionals to take care of this for us. But I'm really excited for it because I think it'll build a really good community. You know, in the green industry, a lot of times you do end up with family businesses and maybe wives that do your invoicing for you. And a lot of time the wives don't have anyone to talk to about it. And, you know, like all the guys have social media and Instagram, but the wives aren't always present for that, or, you know, they're not included in the green industry stuff. And so I'm just really excited to build on that community. We've created a Facebook group for it, for all the people that are attending. And it's cool to see all the different conversations going back and forth, because people are linking up travel together and carpooling down from Dallas to Waco, because it is an hour and a half drive. And So I guess I'm looking forward to the community that's involved, and
we've got a lot of speakers, and that we're really excited about that, Mike. And it's going to be a great benefit. June 12th, Waco, Texas. Go early so you can go and see Magnolia, of course, the Fixer Upper show or whatever it was. What was it? Yeah, with Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Tell your wife you're considering going to Waco, Texas for a conference, and I'm pretty sure she'll approve.
Yeah, like you'll be hero of the weekend for sure. So thanks for letting us talk about that, Mike.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining me on the Kid Contractor podcast hosted by the Aumans. No, this was the How to Hardscape podcast. So thank you so much, Brittany and Caleb, for your time today. Thank you. I can't say enough about the two of you. Take it away. Tell our audience where they can find you online. So if they want to check out more about you, if they don't already know about the two of you, where can they find you online?
Thanks, Mike. I'm still red from that, man. That was funny.
You can hijack our podcast.
Yeah, really. Yeah, next week you can really take it over. So, Auman Landscape LLC on Instagram, at Auman Landscape LLC, at Auman Brittany on Instagram and Facebook and
TikTok,
YouTube and
Snapchat.
all that. Everything, all our
Kid
handles are the same.
Podcast.
Branding at Auman Landscape.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information and let us know about future episodes that you want to learn about here. Reach out to us on our social channels. We are at How to Hardscape on Facebook and Instagram, or send us an email, contact@howtohardscape.com. Again, thank you to Jobber for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't already, check out boostbyjobber.com and apply for those grants. I'd love it to see somebody from this community walk away with one of those and to be able to follow up with you on that. Once again, we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.